You know what? She's now calling them domestic terrorists. So it's funny how when it affects you, it changes the word. But anyway, so we're looking at a book called James. And so just to remind you that it's a very short little book. There's only 108 chapters. And these people are written at a time that makes our chaos, makes our stress look minor. They were actually at a crisis. And as I pointed out earlier, the Roman Empire began a period of severe persecution and people's lives were just turned upside down. Believers could not meet together and they had to hide. They met in cemeteries and graveyards and any place they could find. In fact, the ichthus symbol, I don't know if you guys ever noticed the ichthus symbol, it's a little fish. And the reason they use ichthus is because the letters are part of the Christ. Yeah, I did too, Thomas. A guy went in there and was preaching the gospel, and they beat him up and drug him out and threw him out through the gates. I know that. I've seen all that. But anyway, the thick ichthus, in order to just determine whether they're really believers or not, when they meet, one would drop part of the ichthus, and the other one who they greeted would complete it. And they would meet underground in the catacombs of Rome, because Nero and then Diocletian were just slaughtering Christians by job lots. And that's where James is writing. Now, please understand me, James is, believe it or not, the half-brother of Jesus. Now, we've talked about this before, that James does not introduce himself as, well, Jesus was my half-brother, Mary's my mom, and Joseph was my dad, and I know Jesus' dad was God, so that makes Mary his mom and my mom, we both share a mom. Now, he never said any of that. You know what he calls himself in the verse of James? He is a bond slave of Jesus Christ. So, you can imagine, they're under a little bit of stress. And the book of James is a very short book, only in 108 verses. It's jam-packed with practical guidance, especially on how to counteract 16 common negative emotions that people always typically feel in a crisis. And that's kind of why we're talking about faith that works when life doesn't. This is peace when there is no peace. If you have a peace when there is no peace, if you have a faith that doesn't work when life doesn't, if your faith doesn't work when life doesn't work, it's worthless. But this is a faith that works when life doesn't. If you missed any of the previous 5 messages, I want to urge you to go back and any of the messages we've talked about, and either listen to them or watch them online. Now, today I want us to look at what God says to do when you're feeling unstable. When you're feeling insecure and unstable due to all the changes that are going on around you, and I'm titling this message, Finding Peace